share that as well.
Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson. We are brought to you by the Chalkboard app. And I was on Chris Blessing's podcast, The Eyes Have It, last week, one day before I dropped the big top 400 prospect rankings update on RotoWire. So if you haven't already, I'd recommend checking that out. I retweeted it, and you should also just subscribe to the Eyes Have It podcast and check it out there. Chris is always having on great guests to talk about prospects and scouting. And I mentioned that big top 400 update. YouTube 15 gets you 15% off a RotoWire subscription if you want to check that out, and the corresponding mailbag. But Chris Blessing returning the favor. We're doing a home and home, and so he's going to come on and talk about the best prospects he scouted in person this season, and then also maybe a couple overrated prospects he scouted. So Chris, thanks so much for coming on the pod again. How are you doing?
Man, thanks for having me. I gave you a list, and I have like so many other guys I saw, but so many of the guys I saw this year are already like not prospects anymore. So it's really kind of crazy, how quick this season was, and also how much guys have just accelerated up the prospect charts this year, all the way to the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean it happens fast, especially once you get to Double-A. Things really happen fast from there. The first prospect we're going to talk about is in a tier by himself on my updated top 400 prospect rankings, up at number 1 overall, and that of course is Pirates phenom Connor Griffin. Chris, you saw Connor Griffin in person this year. How do you like?
I got him his first high A trip. I had done some video work on him prior to that. Just because I'll just be honest, I didn't know how fast he would move. I wanted to get a good look at him and Bryce Renier, who unfortunately ended up getting hurt for the Tigers. But like I knew that both of them were going to be top dogs essentially if they stayed healthy, and we've seen Griffin stay healthy. It looks like all indications are is the Pirates want him to stay at shortstop. I saw a kid that was long, lean, athletic. Pretty much all of those, nice little superlatives that you can throw at guys. But I also saw a guy that has adjusted tremendously to pro ball, both with his approach, also with how he sets up now. Like it's it's the same swing speed, but he's getting to his swing so much faster because he's changed the way that his hands set up and all of those sort of things. So like not having to waste time getting his bat into the hit position has just opened up this tremendous skill set. And you start to wonder why, maybe this guy was the best prospect in last year's draft. And maybe he should have been 1-1. I mean, you could say Chase Burns, also another guy that I saw this year that I don't think is a prospect anymore. But like they were seriously the two best guys in the draft last year. If you look at it, Monday morning quarterback, if anything, I guess a year and a month, past the actual draft, but they look like the best players.
Well, it's been a wild ride for that draft class. I mean, I'd throw Nick Kurtz in there as well.
Yeah, I would too.
But I mean, just in terms of kind of, we always sort of knew what Nick Kurtz was supposed to be. It just, the Connor Griffin thing really highlights the fact that scouting high school hitters and projecting their hit tools is still just one of those sort of arts that you can't really. Some people can do it, some people can't do it. The hit rate on projecting a high schooler's hit tool and how it's going to develop is just, it's so hard to nail that. And obviously, I think every team probably wishes they had taken Connor Griffin that passed on him.
Yeah,
I'm sure they had scouts giving them reasons to be a little hesitant there.
And you say that, we just look a few years in the past with Termarr Johnson, a guy that coming out of Georgia, coming out of what I think it was Mays High School in Atlanta, we all believed he was a 60 hit tool. Like that was a lot of the words that were being thrown around the amateur ranks, and I was more in tune then because I was helping out a team, and yeah, even though I didn't see Tamar Johnson actually had like the worst stomach bug, lasted for 2 weeks. Missed him, missed Andrew Jones, maybe, or Drew Jones, I should say. Maybe I would have seen something that nobody else saw, would have been able to come out and be like, oh, just these guys aren't as good as everybody thinks they are. But I doubt that. But like it is very hard. You're essentially taking a 17, 18-year-old kid and you're squinting. You're really squinting to see where that future is going to be. And in that world, in the amateur scouting world, you're trying to assign dollar amounts, signing bonus amounts in your scouting report. It's not so much the grades. Of course, the grades will correlate. If you think he's a roll 5 guy or roll 6 guy or roll 7. For your listeners, a roll 5 would be an average regular. Roll 6 would be an all-star. Roll 7 would be a superstar, essentially. What we're looking at. He's looking like a roll 7 player, Connor Griffin. He's got. I scouted double plus speed to go along with a solid hit tool. Will we know once he gets to maybe AAA, AA, AAA? Will we probably see the what do you call it? The approach get kind of found out a little bit. I think he's a little aggressive. He has a higher swing percentage than you would like to see at this level. But you also have to think this kid's 19 years old. This kid was in high school last year. And even though he looks the part, he's still a kid. I mean, he looks the part of a grown man. I mean, up close, you could see the baby face features. But like, I always go back to getting on a plane last year, and it was with Roman Anthony was in first class, Marcelo Meyer was in first class, and Max Clark. And I hit my eyes with Max Clark, and like he looked like a kid, but from like up here on down, from the neck on down, he was like a physical specimen, even though he's like 5'9", 5'10". Like it's crazy how our athletes are looking at such a young age now, how developed. I think that's I took that away. I didn't get to see any of, like, of course, the futures game maybe, but I didn't get to see like this great pop-up guy, or this was it for me this year, was Connor Griffin. Like he was, okay, this guy's on this pedestal right here, and nobody else is going to touch him. And that's how I viewed him when I saw him. Of course, futures game, I saw Jesus Made, incredible athlete. Still a lot of work to be done, but he's doing awesome things as well. Again, like this guy's on a different level because of the physicality. Like it's just, you don't get to see this that often. And it was hard. Like I couldn't throw out a comp on this guy either. Like he was that special. Like there's a few guys every year that come through. I can go all the way back to, like, remember when I saw Ronald Acuna and thought, all right, this guy could be the best fantasy outfielder. I didn't really feel like he could be the best fantasy player out there, but I saw best fantasy outfielder, which I do. It's in written word, so I do have that somewhere. It wasn't something I just said on Twitter. But like Connor Griffin is, I think he just separates himself. Even if Roman Anthony was still in the minor leagues, and I'm assuming that he'll lose his prospect eligibility. I haven't checked yet. I know he got hurt, and I know he's on the IL. He has. But like, you throw some of the guys that graduated this year, and I would put Connor Griffin in front of them as the number one prospect.
So I think the big question then is just sort of how quickly do you think he's up next year? And this is a loaded question because it's so tough to say what you're talking about the number one prospect in the game, and then you throw an off season at them as they're going from like a young 19 to an old 19, and then you don't know what type of player shows up to spring training. But just like, are you kind of thinking like June-ish, like that range, like after Super 2, like? Are you thinking like late August next year? They really kind of force him to spend another close to a full season in the upper levels? Like, where would you pinpoint it?
We haven't seen the Pirates have to promote a position player of this magnitude. Of course, we've seen Paul Skeens, to a lesser extent, Jarrett Jones, to maybe a little bit greater extent than Jarrett Jones, Bubba Chandler. I thought Bubba Chandler should have been up a lot earlier than he was this year.
I do too.
And so you have to try to take what the team gives you. I think there's a very real possibility that Griffin pushes them to get him up in June.
Yeah.
Like that's the type of talent it was. I don't think that they may have said things publicly, but I didn't think that they really believed that Skeens would be ready as quick as he was. But he forced them. He forced it upon them. And somehow, like Bubba Chandler wasn't able to. I know that there were some drop-offs and all of this stuff. I almost wonder if like Chandler just was frustrated that they hadn't called him up yet. Like
that's my hypothesis. Like his production just sort of fell off a cliff like in mid-May, and it just seemed like he was just trying to throw the ball like too hard and like force their hand, and it was like affecting his performance. It seemed.
Like what else did he have to do? Like there was nothing else that he needed to do. He was ready, and I understand when you're a losing franchise, you're not going to get into the playoffs and stuff. Wanting to hold some of these bullets back, but like Bubba Chandler only has so many bullets. It's not like Connor. See, and then you also have to look at that. Connor Griffin's a position player. There's not that injury threat that would exist with a pitcher. I think he forces their hand late May, early June.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just the timing of where things are now, I think he's too good for them to get away with keeping him down for another like 4 months of minor league action next year. So yeah, very exciting player and very exciting or very challenging player, I think, to value. Like the first, draft and whole draft champions leagues are going to be happening in a month. So like, where do you take this number one overall prospect who has like 30-60 upside? Like, where do you take that guy? That'll be interesting. The next shortstop that we're going to talk about is Caleb Bonemer of the White Sox, who I think he's finally starting to get some flowers now because of getting the promotion to high A and just how he's been hitting lately. But it's really been a very strong season for Bonemer all year. And you saw him live too. How did he look?
So I saw him very early. He wasn't like the main event that I was going for. I was, of course, going for Braden Montgomery, who's now at AA, who I hope to see tomorrow night. I've got AA White Sox coverage tomorrow night. Hopefully, I don't make the drive. I make the drive and get there, and he's in the lineup because it hasn't happened to me yet. But like, I feel like it's about to happen to me. Like, when you're going to live games, sometimes guys aren't in the lineup, and I just feel like it's got to catch up. I'm already in September, and it hasn't happened to me yet. But anyway, I digress. I saw Bonneman. I saw him against the Lynchburg team in Lynchburg, which is the Cleveland Guardians. I forget the pitcher he was facing. But again, you're talking about a kid that was just out of spring training. I try not to necessarily concentrate on prep guys that are coming out of their first spring training, mostly because they're gonna end up struggling. It's just kind of how it works out usually. I usually give them a leeway of about a month. So again, I'm in this game not really considering this dude and watch his at bats. He puts together some at bats that are way beyond his years. Making adjustments. They decided to start out pitching away. His first swing that he took was a swing that didn't really cover the plate. It was geared towards pull contact. He made the adjustment the next at bat, hit a ball into the right center field gap for a double, maybe even a triple. It's been since April since I've seen him, but yeah, it was a double. Which was, first off, it was the angles that he was able to produce on that. especially considering it's kind of a flat angled swing at this point. He's not really going for power, but you could see from that swing and then the subsequent swings, and then also watching him on video, that his swing is naturally to right center field. But he's also a guy that can get to pull contact as well. He can adjust to that. Like I saw, like he was literally trying to ambush a lefty. He was trying to go in, had gone inside to the first few hitters, and he thought, oh, hey, they're going to go inside to me. No, I'm going to have the whole plate. So I saw first off a very heady hitter, a guy that was beyond his years, and then really the angles, and then watching the videos and seeing those same angles. Being able to see a guy that's lofting the ball to right center field at such a young age, especially given that he's, Connor Griffin, you expect that sort of thing from, given his size, given the swing trajectory that he has. You don't expect it out of a guy like Caleb Bonemer. It's just not at the same development level. Body still has developing to do. But yeah, again, I really thought that, like, hey, this could be something, even if it's not plus power. This is probably an average power guy, but it's those intangibles, the way he works at bats, his contact weight, the quality of his contact as well. Like, this is a kid that knows what he's doing at the plate, has a game plan at such an early age, and then is able to go off of that game plan and essentially go off script, because that's what happens during games. That's the sort of when we say advanced kids in scouting, that's the sort of thing that we expect. We look for AA guys to start doing. We don't really expect guys right out of high school to do that. We expect AA guys to do that. And so seeing Bonemer at 19 being able to do that as a second round pick in a draft that was top heavy last year and maybe not had the depth of some of the drafts that we're used to, and seeing that this a team that hasn't really done well at drafting to pick a guy like this is a huge win for the White Sox on the level of scouting and on development. Like, they don't have guys like this outside of the first round usually.
Yeah, I think I had Bonemer at number 80 on my last update. I'd have him higher than that now, and obviously that update, I think that happened right as he got promoted to high A. He's slugging .762 at high A in 6 games. He's you talked about the he's got the ability to pull, the angles are there, like he's really kind of an air pull specialist, and or he's at least not a specialist, but he's figured out that aspect of hitting earlier than most guys do. And you throw in the fact that he's attempted 36 steals this year. We'll see like how many bases he's stealing in a year or two, but I think Bonemer, one of the better prep hitters in that entire class, really. And I think it's brighter times are ahead for the White Sox. I think most people know that, but
it's good to say that, because it's been so long to be able to say that. We might live in a world that someday we say that about the Angels.
Yeah, well, there's a common thread that those two teams share where they probably could use a change in ownership. But
yes,
there's another hitter that impressed Chris this year, who also impressed me, a Reds prospect. We'll talk about him in a second, but first I want to turn it to a message from our sponsors. Cash in on your MLB picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTOMLB. That's ROTOMLB to get $20 free with no deposit required. The NFFC RotoWire Fantasy Football Online Championship is live. Play fantasy football against your favorite RotoWire experts on NFFC this football season. Jeff Erickson, Nick Whalen, and more will compete in the RotoWire NFFC Online Championship for a shot at $250,000. Sign up for a draft today at rotowire.com/high stakes. That's rotowire.com/high stakes. All right, Chris, we are back, and Hector Rodriguez was that Reds prospect I was alluding to, a player who has really fascinated me at times. I think his top 400 chart for like where he's been ranked through the years would look kind of like a heartbeat monitor. I had moments where I wanted to push him up, and then other moments where I'm just kind of like, are they really going to give this guy a chance to play regularly? But I mean, he's been on fire this year. He's up to AAA. When did you see Rodriguez, and how did he look?
Well, I saw Rodriguez a bunch in AA this year. The Lookouts, the AA affiliate for the Cincinnati Reds, is in Chattanooga, which is one of my two home parks. I was very familiar, and I kind of had the same heartbeat ranking with Rodriguez through the years. I think it all started in the Florida State League after he was it was after he was traded, I believe. He was in the Tyler Naquin, who's now a reliever in the Guardians organization. Like he was in the Arizona Complex League this year, Tyler Naquin. Like it's just crazy to me that like this exists, this timeline exists where Tyler Naquin at 32 years old is a pitcher in the Arizona Complex League. But he was acquired from the Mets in this deal. A very interesting sidebar. I overheard a conversation maybe with the Mets scout about that trade deadline. Oh God, what year was that? 2022? Yeah, 2022. July of 2022. Where it didn't necessarily seem like the scouts had much input in the trades that were made, and it was basically done again pre-David Stearns, a lot of the guys in the organization now. I think that most of the scouts are still there, to be honest. There are some good scouts. But anyway, these deals were made without really checking on these players. Darren Ruff trade happened that year. And Darren Ruff couldn't handle New York. And I think every scout could tell you that would have been an issue with Darren Ruff. It might have been the year prior, but like we're looking at an organization that like literally traded away two really interesting players for Tyler Naquin of all guys. Jose Acuna hasn't really gotten over the AA, AAA hump as a pitcher, but he's a major league pitcher. He's going to be in the major leagues. And then this Hector Rodriguez guy kind of showed out in the Florida State League his first year with especially early in the year, especially with a home run barrage, because he wasn't really considered that kind of guy. At that point, he also had a lot of speed, which he does not necessarily have right now. And then he kind of disappeared. He went into what we call a tweener bucket. He was a guy that didn't have the speed for center field to carry that position, and didn't necessarily have the power for corner outfield position. He's a guy that if James and I get it right, James and I look really good. If we don't, we look bad, or nobody really remembers because it's Hector Rodriguez. I equated him when I wrote him up to Lamont Wade. I think Lamont Wade's playing somewhere. I know he was with the Angels at one point. Had a few years where he was a Giant and stuff, where you couldn't really pull. You kind of had to pick. All right, is this guy ever going to get to a average, regular type place? And he did. He did. I compared them to each other when I first saw Hector Rodriguez, and then I saw this maturation. This guy was super aggressive, maybe one of the most aggressive hitters in the minor leagues prior to this season. And here we are in AA after a promotion, and he's working counts. He seems to have adjusted to pitching, adjust in game to pitching as well. Do I think that there's like the carry-in tool plus power here? Probably not. But the hit tool and the on-base with the on-base skills and his ability to kind of shoot a gap with a liner, it's making him a very interesting prospect for me. It's not like he really was a spray approach hitter. Like he was really kind of a punch and Judy hitter, to take that old term that probably needs to be retired away. But like that's what he kind of was early on. Then all of a sudden had this power barrage, and now while he's still kind of aggressive, I think the swing percentage is still around 50%. I haven't looked him up since he was promoted to AAA. But he was a guy that like his swings remains compact. He has great plate coverage, and he seems to be able to handle different pitches. I think there's a possibility that this is a 20 home run hitter with batting average, with on base percentage. And in a, maybe in a 12 teamer he ain't starting, but in a 15 teamer he's definitely somebody that we're going to be counting on. And he might actually be somebody in a 12 teamer, but you're not necessarily going to draft him too high once he gets to that level. And then to get a guy with this sort of skill set, like, do I think he's going to be the Reds' starting outfielder anytime soon? No. I could see him with another team, kind of like the Lamont Wade situation where the Twins didn't really need him. Twins had first base, the corner outfield covered at the time. They move him to the Giants, and now he has a role. Rodriguez is also on the good side of the platoon as well, if he becomes just a platoon hitter. But I saw some of his best at bats this year against left-handed pitchers. Whether they were successful or not, that's a different story. But like he still battled and he hung in, and those are some of the things that you really look for. And the fact that the walks are up, especially that he wasn't in a league where there was an automated strike zone. Like we've fallen for the fool's gold on a lot of guys because they've made this improvement in a league with an automated zone. This guy made this improvement 2 years after leaving the automated zone. Granted, he's in there now. We're probably going to have a challenge system very soon, but like this guy has completely reworked himself as a hitter. And kudos to Hector Rodriguez. I think that he is probably a solid regular, maybe an average regular, but we've now kind of gone from calling him a tweener guy that might be an up-down major leaguer to a guy that we're pretty sure is a major leaguer. And it's just a matter of whether it's a regular outcome or a platoon outcome.
Yeah, I think he's definitely. I mean, everyone other than Roman Anthony basically gets platooned right away if you're a lefty hitter. So
yes,
I would expect him to start in a platoon at the very least. But if he was just a little bit better defensively, or just a little bit better of a runner, or a little bit better at getting the ball in the air consistently, I would absolutely love this guy for fantasy.
Yes.
Just because of the future home park. I definitely see the bat speed and the pull power for him to be a 20-plus homer guy, even sitting against lefties. It's just kind of a question of when the Reds are either willing to play him or trade him. I could certainly see other teams sniffing around. It's not, you don't typically think of the Reds having to trade away their prospects to worse organizations so that they can play, but that could be the case here. But yeah, I think he's close enough. He's going to have to be added to the 40-man roster this offseason. Obviously, I think he should be rostered in all dynasty leagues. Probably a bit more valuable in batting average leagues to me.
Yes.
Just because I do think like that run at AA this year, really the only time where he's shown like any kind of a patient approach at all. But I think he does enough things really well that I think he will have a nice little run there on the strong side of the platoon.
I do want to say, when I throw a name out like Lamont Wade, you got to understand, like in a scouting term, Lamont Wade should not have been even a platoon, get the amount of at-bats that he got. He had no carry tool whatsoever. His carry tool was really how he got on base, and it's a very different than what Rodriguez does, which is Rodriguez is more batting average driven, as where Wade was a passive hitter and became a selective hitter, and then became a way passive hitter when he stopped his swing speed, kind of disappeared. But like the Lamont Wade success stories type players, there are every year I mean, James is also going through these prospect lists as well, going up to 20 or 30 players. There are so many guys that we cover in those lists that are tweeners, and there's very few guys that get out of that role. Most of them end up down guys that end up retiring early or headed over to a different professional league after a while. So when I say Hector Rodriguez is kind of emerging out of that bucket, that's a really big deal because not many people emerge out of it. And that's where that Wade comp comes in because Wade was a guy that played for the Chattanooga Lookouts, and maybe that's why I threw that name out there. That also got out of that bucket for a little bit and became something other than just an up down filler type dude.
So moving to pitchers, Chris, I want to actually start with Robby Snelling because he actually threw another gem today. seven innings, 13 Ks, no walks, 1 earned run. So now he's, I mean, he basically had done enough, I think, to warrant a promotion a month or two ago. But he's still at AAA. Robby Snelling. What did you see from him this year? I mean, he's obviously been on a roll over the past few months.
I know I'm giving a lot of background information before I get into guys. Robby Snelling was a dude that I actually presented in another capacity. I'm in the assessing industry, and I actually created a presentation about appraising, but really it was about evaluator bias, and I used all of these baseball terms, all of these baseball examples, and one of the prime examples was Robby Snelling. Robby Snelling, 19-year-old season, it got up to AA, just absolutely shoved. Let's just say that. He just absolutely shoved at every level. Like, just great stuff. That was 2023. 2024 happens and it just absolutely falls apart. And one of my things in that evaluator bias thing was what I looked at it as myself. What did I miss? Well, how could this guy just fall off? And so, I looked at all the shiny tools and I was like, we weren't really paying too much attention to strike percentage specifically on fastballs. Like, his strike percentage on fastball at that time was mediocre. I am going to say the number 2 biggest improvement with him this year has been his ability to throw the fastball for strikes. That's the number 2 best thing. Which is very important, especially for a guy that, those 2023 IBBs that we remember aren't going to be as great with the big league ball. But we've seen it actually be pretty good, like better than other guys at this level. I think that he is pitching to his strengths now. I think that's a huge thing. But the number one thing that I really just kind of fell in love with was the sweeper variation of his curveball. He now has actual breaking pitches. I thought that before those breaking pitches ended up kind of, smashing into each other type thing. The curveball is sitting at a similar velocity, but now he has a slider that's in the mid 80s. Like, having that variation in his repertoire now has kind of caused that the whole arsenal's like just playing up. And then we haven't even talked about the improved changeup at this point. It went from probably an average offering to above average to a potentially plus offering from this whole story that I've put together from seeing him last year, seeing him this year. And again, like, I didn't feel like he had a tool to battle right-handed hitters other than that fastball. And now he has an added tool. I feel like he has multiple tools now with against lefties too, where he only had one tool prior to this. Uh, we can talk about all the things that went wrong last season. This Robby Snelling's a different Robby Snelling than 2023 when he was 19 years old. He's vastly different than 2024, obviously. But the thing that I like the most about him that I will compare 2023 and 2025 to is the swagger on the mound. It's back. Like, this guy's not scared. He wasn't throwing strikes. That was a mechanical thing. That had nothing to do with him. Like, I think his fastball was so good that he just didn't know how to corral it. And I think that him and the Mariners or the Marlins, I said the Mariners, him and the Marlins just kind of got on a level that a development level almost from the very beginning where they just told him be yourself. Like that was the big thing that changed last year after the trade deadline when he was traded. Be yourself. He became himself. And you know, kudos to him. Like this is I think it's a SP3 profile. I think it's a very high probability of that profile. And I just absolutely love him because now he has the arsenal. It's just not the one pitch, it's an arsenal. And while that fastball is not as great as it was in 2023 on a movement profile range, it is now at a place where it is. I mean, it's a compliment to some of the other pitches while also still being the pitch.
Yeah, and now Robby Snelling up to a career high 125 innings after tonight's start. So
Nice.
third straight year over 100 innings for Robby Snelling, who is still just 21 years old. So I remember that being one of the big things about him in the draft in 2022 is just how advanced he was from a strength standpoint compared to most of the prep arms you see. And that honestly gave me a little bit of pause just because he just seemed so muscular. And I was more kind of biased towards like a more like projectable 6'3", 6'4" type of thing. But like the swagger on the mound you talked about, like he had that back in 2023 and definitely back right now. Obviously been having as much success as any pitcher at AAA over the past couple months. I think assuming the Marlins don't call him up this year, which I assume, like, why would they at this point if they weren't going to already? But maybe they will. But it will add like a nice little element of mystery to his 2026 fantasy price tag if he doesn't come up this year, just because there won't be that like one or two good big league starts or one or two bad big league starts to color everyone's view of him. So let's talk about Thomas White, his org mate, who is probably still ranked ahead of him on most rankings, if not all rankings. But another lefty, Thomas White's got a big time curveball, a ton of pedigree. What did you see from him?
I got to see a bunch of lefties this year: Snelling, Tolley, Brandon Clark. I got to see Schultz. We're going to talk about Hagen Smith, not to preview the show before we get to that part, but I got to see a lot of lefties, and Thomas White left me with the best impression when I saw him. Saw him on a very, very warm day. I can't believe I was out there for that day. I usually was out at this point whenever it's like over 95 with terrible humidity. He's an XXL frame. He's a big dude, 6'5", 6'6". I'm not 100% sure. About 240. Like just a big dude, overpowering. The strength is very evident in his delivery. He held his velocity throughout the performance, which on a day like that is saying a lot. Because it was I needed mercy. Like I really needed water between doubleheader games. Three pitch pitcher, workhorse offerings, mid 90s, four seam fastball, comes out of a very low arm slot. I mean, it just explodes on hitters, and he has the ability at any moment of time to get extra oomph on that pitch. While it kind of sits in the mid 90s, he can easily get up to 99, which I did see during that start. It's a plus pitch. I really felt like I feel like he could be even better if like he had a two seamer to go along with that four seam fastball. I feel like just the changing the eye levels just slightly, without losing too much off of that four seamer and that late riding action that he has. I really believe that's a element that he could add to his game. Going further in, he has a sweeping slider. He was, I mean, I'll be honest, and talking to a scout, he had kind of struggled with the pitch in previous outings. He threw a lot of uncompetitive sliders during the game that I scouted. But man, if he could get that slider command up to like a 40 grade to a below average grade. This could really be a plus pitch. It has, the sweep, but I think it's how the late drop, the how far it gets into the progression when it just drops. It drops at like the 58 inches, like, or 58 whatever, 60 feet 6
Yeah,
inches,
I saw it
58
getting
feet.
classified as a curveball because of that.
Yeah, but I call it's a sweeper to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
we can have sweeping curveballs and sweeping sliders. It's what the guy calls it. Really and
Sure.
truly. It's a sweeper. However, we throw it out there. He also throws a change. I think it was the kick change. That's kind of what I scouted watching him, and that's kind of what I went with. It's still a fairly raw pitch, but you do see the potential that it could be that true third pitch that he needs. Given a sweeper, given his arm angle, I wonder if a cutter would work as well in this arsenal. Again, we're at a time where we see these pitching prospects and we're really trying to guess what might work best for them given their arm slot, given how they throw the ball. And I just look at a guy that I feel like is going to have a completely different arsenal in 2 years. I feel like the pitches that we see right now, like the kick change wasn't his changeup in previous years. We had four seam fastball and sweeper. I feel like we're going to start seeing a marrying of some other pitches in there, just to create deception, more complete pitch profile. And again, like I got to see all these lefties, and there was only one SP1 future grade that I threw on anybody, and that was with Thomas White. And I really like Peyton Tolley, by the way. We're not even talking about him, but I really like him a lot. But I didn't throw an SP1 on him.
Well, very high praise for Thomas White. And he just got promoted to AAA 2 days ago. Has not made his AAA debut, but 10 Ks and 5 scoreless innings in his last AA start for Thomas White on the 30th of August. The final pitcher we'll talk about in terms of someone that really impressed Chris is J.R. Ritchie with Atlanta. And Atlanta's just kind of back to having a bunch of pitchers at the top of their farm system. Ritchie back from Tommy John surgery, and he's just been really fantastic for most of the season. What did you see from him, Chris?
Ritchie was a guy that I really liked out of the 2022 draft because he was such a good athlete. 35th overall pick. I think that was the same draft they took Owen Murphy. I'm not 100% sure. But guys that were very different, but guys I really liked a lot. And obviously, two guys that have gone through the Tommy John surgery route as pro players. Ritchie had his, I think it was early last season, if I'm right. I'm not 100% sure. I saw a guy that early on saw him 2 starts in a row, 2 consecutive starts on Sundays and Saturday. And like he just absolutely dominated both starts. One game he pitched what we call a Maddox complete game. Like it was so obvious after the first start that he needed to be in AA, but after the second start, it was pretty clear. I think he forced their hand on that. He's gone from throwing traditionally a 2-seam fastball to a 4-seam fastball. My understanding, talking to Jeff Ponce and talking to a few other scouts out there, it was a change in arm angle, that arm slot that really has opened up Ritchie. The slider's always been a pitch that I have graded highly, maybe a little bit higher than some other people. It's a vertical slider, but it just has some really good bite to it and just kind of drops off the plate. He's always had a feel for a changeup. I think that it's come in his own this year. I think that's really kind of the big progression on the swing and misses, where the 4-seamer, yes, has added more swing and misses than anything. I really low graded him when I saw him because of the velocity of the 2 games I saw him in. However, as the season has worn on, more velocity has popped. And with that more velocity, and while the results haven't been the exact same at AA and AAA as it's been in A plus and high A, it still has shown me like this guy is legit. And where I called him maybe an SP4 before, I kind of have him in the SP3 bucket at this point.
You think there could be a bit more strike throwing from Ritchie next year? Or do you think, because he's been up over like a 10% walk rate at AA, AAA, and that was always sort of one of his big strengths before the surgery, and even when he in 2024, like do you think he's gonna just kind of be a guy that walks a decent amount of guys, or next year do you think he might be a bit more stiff with those?
The guy that I saw at that point was somebody who was throwing strikes. My understanding is he kind of lost his slot that he had from earlier this year. Maybe grabbing some more extra velocity. Again, he had a whole year where his muscle memory just got like erased.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think one of the things that I think that's the really kind of remaining caveat with him is, can he get that muscle memory back where he's throwing exactly where they want him to throw it and where he's had the most success, which he had in high A. I mean, that was the thing. The dude, like in the 2 games that I saw him, was on a different level, like absolutely different level. And even then I called him SP4. Like with the velocity gain might have came some control command loss, but it's a skill that he had that he showed earlier this year, and a skill that I believe will come back.
So talked here with Chris Blessing about 6 prospects that he's seen that were pretty impressive this season. We talked about my number 1 overall prospect, Connor Griffin, my number 80 overall prospect, Caleb Bonemer, my number 86 overall prospect, Hector Rodriguez, Robby Snelling, Thomas White, J.R. Ritchie, all top 100 prospects. This next guy, still in my top 100, probably just because I'm being stubborn because I was high on him before the year, and he might be having a bit of an injury-affected season, but Cam Collier of the Reds has been healthy now for a couple months, missed the first couple months with a thumb injury, or the first 6-7 weeks or so with a thumb injury, and just has not hit for much power this year, Chris. So what did you see from Cam Collier, and do you think he can right the ship next year?
Well, anytime you're going and watching a guy that has had torn, let's just say thumb ligament, this was a torn left thumb ligament. Also, when guys have wrist injuries, he doesn't have a wrist injury, but like one of the things that takes a little bit time to get back is really kind of that swing. Guys with thumb injuries tend to either get really, really freaking good because they only have like maybe one swing in them at it, every at bat. So like they make the most of that. I think a good example, I think that might have been a wrist injury, was Willie Randolph when he won the batting title. Had a messed up wrist, and he only like swung when when it was worth swinging, kind of thing. Like
Picked his spots.
He picked his spots, won a batting title, and with the Brewers of all people. Like it was late in his career, but like he had to compensate for that. I've been on Collier since he was a sophomore in high school, which was like only a few years ago. To be honest with you, I saw him play at a nearby high school, and he was playing shortstop at that time. And one of the things we kind of looked at, and I wrote down in that report, was that like it was a bad body, and it was eventually probably not going to be shortstop, probably not even going to be third base. That was an argument I kind of had with myself, whether like was the body going to outpace itself, and right now like it's a first baseman's body. Physically, he's just this bulky guy. Like it's like awkwardness. He's really, really strong. I think that the swing issues this year, he has this trigger that he kind of rocks his hands forward, and I think it just saps all of his power. the on base percentage that we get at this point sometimes. This is what I'm scared with. I think the on base percentage is so high because he knows he can't make contact like on a lot of pitches. So I think he takes a lot of pitches. He's a big guy, and even in Double A, granted the power numbers aren't there. People tend those pitchers aren't good, most of them, especially at this time of year. They're high A guys or guys that have remained in Double A to this point.
Right.
Like they're just not good guys, and they're beating him.
Like my theory is like you could almost say this about pretty much every level of pitching at this time of year because it's just like most of the guys like you're the guys that are still healthy that didn't get promoted, whose innings aren't being managed. Like it's sort of this is the time of year where you should be padding your stats as a hitter.
Your high A pitchers and Double A pitchers especially are coming from independent leagues. Like, I don't know if you're having the same effect in low A because at least they're pulling guys from the complex, and maybe they're just inexperienced, but there's some live arms coming. You're literally pulling guys from independent leagues, and we're not talking about former major leaguers usually, or some of them have turned into major leaguers. I mean, the Mets have had some success with getting some of their indie guys from filler to actual performer, but like a lot of these guys aren't good. That little rock with his, and hopefully people can see it. Like, let me try to, I know this is video, but it's also a podcast, audio podcast. But when you rock your hands, you can't go back. Like, how do you move like that and move quickly? I think it's a bad habit. I did not see that in previous views that I've seen him at. I think it might be something that just kind of is developed out of protecting his thumb, possibly. I don't know. But it's definitely sapped some of that getting out in front and being able. Because the bat speed's still there, I'm going to say. It might be a little bit less because of the injury, but it's still there. He's just not getting out there. He's not able to get that bat, his hands through the zone like he was previously. I think there's definitely some swing and miss issues that are like when you go for power, like this guy in high school had a very flat angled swing. Even in college, like he had a very flat angled swing in junior college. And he's now kind of sold out to power, where maybe this guy naturally just has power and didn't need to do that. But the swing and miss issues are very troubling. I saw him look really, really ugly against some mediocre arms, right-handed arms. And then I saw him like just hang in there. I can't think of the lefty, Dax Fulton, that's his name. Former, fairly well-known Marlins prospect, still a Marlins prospect, but like probably a middle reliever at this point. And like he held in against him pretty well. He didn't look too bad against Thomas White, but like some of the lesser guys, he looked really bad against. And like when I've seen him make great contact or really good contact, it just doesn't have the same loft that it had last year when I saw him at the Futures game.
Yeah, so I mean, I think maybe the truth somewhere in the middle. I think his run to close high A last year, Collier, was really impressive to me. But it was the second half of the season at high A. So it's just kind of, I think if he had a good first couple of months in 2026, that wouldn't surprise me. Just because,
it wouldn't surprise me either.
He's still 20. He turns 21 in November. So we're talking about the struggles of a 20-year-old at Double A, and I've always expected him to end up at first base. Like I think there's just no chance he's a third baseman, especially like in this org. There's guys in front of him, like maybe he's even just a DH, but like you're not like it's not going to be like a Rafael Devers or like Prince Fielder type of outcome, but it's like that type of just body where it's just that's where it's going to end up eventually. And so I'm probably going to kind of keep him in sort of like a buy low range this off season.
And that's
but
where I had him too, James. I had him in the buy low thing, and I still do because I believe that like it's not this bad.
right. Yeah, I think he's, it's we'll find out about Cam Collier's intangibles and his work ethic and stuff this offseason because he's going to have he'll look at that home run total and hopefully be like, all right, what do we got to do to fix it? Okay, final guy to talk about with Chris Blessing, Hagen Smith, and we are finally at someone who is not in my top 100, not even in my top 150, just outside of the top 150. Hagen Smith, who was obviously a top 10 pick in last year's draft by the White Sox, lefty out of Arkansas, I believe. What did you see out of Hagen Smith, Chris?
So I wrote him up twice. I saw him in two really bad outings. Saw him go 2/3 of an inning at the back end of a doubleheader. I was like, see it, bye. Like I had watched Noah Schultz in game one. It wasn't a good White Sox lineup. I looked at this there like, where are you going? And one of the scouts goes, and I was like, I don't get paid except for the article. I'm like, there's no other articles here. I'm out. Oh, that must be nice. It's like you guys are making a lot more money being here than I am, so shut up. But anyway, Smith, man, I just fell for it during the off season. Like all these reports. I mean, I go and I read some of the things I wrote last year, and it was like, all right, I didn't trust the dude in the draft. I don't know about you. Did you trust him?
I didn't, but I didn't trust Chase Burns either. I kind of just sort of punted on both guys.
I trusted Chase Burns a little more just because I think the pedigree of coming from Wake Forest really kind of solidified that. I felt like the changes that he made from UT to Wake Forest, I felt a lot better about, if that says anything. I thought Hagen Smith's improvement at Arkansas was kind of inflated from pitching against really bad competition earlier in the year. The same level of quality. Like the walk rate in the SEC play went back up to where it was, but like it was spectacular against those really bad teams at the beginning of the year. So on the surface, it looked bad, but like it was there. Then this year, I write this article, and I still kind of I hedged on it. I hate that I hedged on it. Ended up writing him up again and saying like the worst thing I said was like something about his delivery where I thought there was reliever risk, but like this guy's a starter type thing. And oh my god, I can't believe I said that. Like, holy crap, what was I thinking when I wrote that up? I was trying to see something that wasn't there. I found out that the White Sox hid him during spring training from all scouts except for the prospect game. When I say hide, they basically did not put him in any minor league games at all. The workouts that were open to the public, he never showed up. He was never there. Like that's a bad sign. That tells you right there that the organization there's something wrong with this guy's command. I don't think he had the yips. Don't get me wrong. I didn't see a guy with the yips, but I saw a guy that I don't think could. If you threw down $5 on the next 5 picks. And I shouldn't say this because of all the betting that it was the Guardians. So, but let's say the next pitches, I'll give you $5 if he throws them off, throws 4 of them for strikes. And I would say like in a consecutive thing, there's a very good chance that he's not going to be able to do it like ever. And I know 80% strike rate's high and that sort of thing, but like there's no batter in there. Like it's just him and the catcher and the plate. I don't think he has an 80% strike rate with just him and the catcher, no batter. Like that's
Okay.
saying a lot. Like I noticed a guy with a poor foot strike, like he doesn't repeat his foot strikes. Like after that first game, looking at the video that I had and seeing the different divots that he was making into the ground, like it was just so uneven. And I hate to say this, it reminded me of Asa Lacy.
I was
something that I saw
I wasn't gonna say it, but yeah, definitely. Like I should have probably been. I definitely should have been higher on Chase Burns, but I definitely saw sort of, you know, I got sort of flashbacks to that, and I just sort of kind of thought maybe let's just not focus on the college starters in this range of the draft. Let's focus on the hitters. Burns obviously was well worth the pick there. Just quickly before you go, Chris, like you saw Noah Schultz this year, right?
Yes, I did.
Like,
and I liked him. I liked him a little better, but like I also think like the big improvement is his extension. He's actually using his height a little, but it's still below average extension. I think he's just he's a starter for me, but I don't think he's anything real special. Like I didn't crush him where I think he's a reliever like I do with Hagen Smith. I think that Schultz is probably SP3, SP4, where maybe a lot of other people have SP2 aspirations for him. I don't really see him getting much better than where he is right now. Like, yeah, command might improve, that sort of thing, but I don't see the pitch mix improving that much. And that's really where it is. I'm not blown away by him.
Because I have them both. Like I have them both in the sort of 160-ish range. So like I'm outish on both guys.
Schultz is just outside of my top 100. Hagen Smith is not in my 150. I only go up to 150, so he's not in my 150.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this can happen sometimes, and Noah Schultz. You were talking about sort of kicking yourself for not being lower on Hagen Smith. I'm kind of kicking myself for not being a little lower on Noah Schultz coming into the year. Just it seems like that pitching, that like 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" pitching prospect who has been babied all year, going like 2 to 4 innings, and then it's like, all right, now you're at AA. Now it's time to get to the majors. Like that falls apart so much more often than it like succeeds. It seems like so. I just wish I'd kind of put Schultz more in sort of like the 50-60 range coming into the year, just from a fantasy standpoint, because of all the stuff that could go wrong there. But Hagen Smith, I would basically be hoping that they just try to salvage his salvage the pick by turning him into a closer or something like that would be sort of what I'd be hoping for in
that's what I'm hoping for as well. At least they got Caleb Bonemer last year. Like, let's give the White Sox a victory and not talk about their defeats.
Yeah, they got Caleb Bonemer, who we talked about earlier, and great pick. Chris, this has been great. Why don't you let people know again where they can follow your work?
Yes, baseballhq.com. Off-season work starting soon. I'm also Eyes Have It podcast host. I got 3 more episodes. Just dropped one this morning. I haven't even promoted it yet, but this is just me talking about how I missed on Jonah Tong. I talk about my scouting of Jonah Tong last year and just kind of some of the things that we've discussed here on this show today, like not realizing that, hey, Jonah Tong can't really throw a changeup, and then, let's give him a kick change. And now he's like a fastball changeup guy and looks like a mid-rotation starter. Like, that's my podcast this week, is kind of going through that and trying to figure out what I missed.
Excellent. Well, yeah, definitely subscribe to Chris's The Eyes Have It podcast. And thanks for listening to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast, brought to you by the Chalkboard app.